How you doing, everybody? Welcome to a very special episode here on Dwayne's World. Well, why is it a special episode? Well, it's because it involves my 2018 Honda Accord. You better stay tuned. Alright, so what are we doing on this very special episode of Dwayne's World? Well, I'll be doing an unboxing and review of a Saker polisher on my 2018 Honda Accord. I'm going to see how well this performs, so let's get started. Alright, so here she is. This is the Saker Cordless Buffer Polisher. You know, the wonderful people over at Saker had actually reached out to me and asked if I wouldn't mind doing unboxing and review on this particular product. You know, outside of doing all of my lawn care things, I am also a huge car enthusiast, so I was absolutely excited when they asked me if I would test out their polisher. You know, I do have a couple of other polishers that I definitely have used in the past and I've had great success, but I've never had a cordless polisher, so I really thought that this was a great opportunity to be able to try out an awesome product. So let's go ahead and get it unboxed. All right, so go ahead and open it up here. One of the things I did do is I did go ahead and charge the battery already, but it is something you're definitely going to want to do per the manual. But as you guys can see here, we got a few different things in the box. Very nice to see that they have provided different polishing pads that you'll be able to use. So I'm going to go ahead and set those to the side. Looks like it also comes with sandpaper if you did ever want to do any type of finishing work, or if you're working on any other type of projects. That's nice to see. Then we also have what appears to be a microfiber bonnet as well. All right, as we get deeper into the box here, it looks like there's another finishing pad there. Possibly a carrying case. We'll find out in a minute. And the actual polisher. All right, so the polisher, the battery, and also, very importantly, the manual. All right, let me go ahead and lay it out here just so you guys can see it all. All right, so I went ahead and decided to just lay everything out here on the table for you guys to see. You know, initially I thought that this was a carrying case. It's actually not. It's an actual apron. The purpose of the apron is the apron helps keep yourself clean. But not only that, as you're leaning over the vehicle, it'll also ensure that you're not scratching the vehicle with your clothes or a belt buckle or anything like that. So very nice to see that they thought of that. You obviously get your manual there. You get the polisher and battery. The polisher does have a Velcro bottom, so you're able to attach any of the pads that are provided or any pads that you may want to purchase in the future. You have your polishing pads, as you guys can see there. A couple of microfiber finishing pads. You also get what appears to be synthetic wool pads. And lastly, a 2000 grit piece of sandpaper that you can also adapt to the polisher if you're ever doing any type of restoration. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so here's my 2018 Honda Accord that I'll be using today to test out the Saker polisher. Just a couple of things I want to point out that you definitely want to do before you start any type of polishing project or waxing project is you absolutely want to make sure you wash your vehicle. So get your vehicle all cleaned up, you know, get it all dried off, and that way you'll know you'll be starting with a clean surface. Now, one of the things I do also recommend, but is not mandatory, is to use a clay bar to really get the paint clean. So I'm going to show you guys what that looks like quickly before we go ahead and start polishing. All right, so if you did want to take this step, this is an example of what a clay bar looks like. The purpose of the clay bar is to be able to really go back and forth along the surface of the paint and lift any contaminants that you may not even be able to see to the naked eye. What this is going to do is really ensure you have a clean surface before you go ahead and start polishing, so that way you're not incorporating anything bad back into the paint. Now, one of the things you are going to want to use in addition to the clay bars, you do not want to just take this and run it along the surface. You are going to need a type of lubricant. All right, so there's a couple different options as far as lubricant when it comes to using a clay bar. Some people just use some soapy water, which is absolutely okay. But one of the things I like to do is I like to go with like an instant detailer. Now, it's up to you what manufacturer you want to go with, but really this is just going to provide lubrication to the surface of the paint, so that way the clay bar can do its job and not damage the paint. All right, another thing you're absolutely going to want is you're going to want to make sure you do have some clean microfiber towels on hand. Got one right here that we're going to go ahead and be able to wipe off the surface after we're done clay barring it. One of the things I'm doing is I'm going ahead and just spraying the surface so that way I can use the clay bar. Just want to make sure I get it pretty wet here. All right, so now all I'm doing, and you can generally even feel whenever contaminants are coming off of the paint. Now again, I'm just going in motions up and down here, and adding more lubricant as I'm going. And to be honest with you, the paint actually feels really good. In some cases, when I've done cars before in the past, or I've done my own vehicles, you know, I can feel some grittiness coming off, but this paint actually feels pretty good, which I'm glad to see. All right, now what I'm going to do is go ahead and just wipe it down using my microfiber towel. And that is looking pretty good. Going to go ahead and just finish off the rest of the hood here, and then we'll go ahead and start polishing. All right, so one thing I just want to point out before I go ahead and get started here, the polisher is rated between 2,500 and 5,000 RPM. There is a speed adjustment on the side of the polisher, as you guys can see here, where you can actually toggle between 1 and 6 being the fastest speed. So I'm assuming 6 is probably at 5,000 RPM, as where number 1 is probably to 2,500. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so what I'm going to be doing today is I'm only going to be doing a wax. I'm not actually going to be using any type of compound on my paint just because it looks pretty good and is in really good condition. So what I'd like to do is just start by applying wax to the actual surface of the paint. I'm going to go ahead and just dab a little bit onto my actual pad as well, just to ensure I have uniform coverage. All right, and then what I like to do is just kind of dab it around, again, just to ensure that it's good everywhere for the panel that you're working on. Now, one thing I also would recommend is starting with the lowest speed first and then gradually work your way up higher. So I'm going to start with number 1. Now, this speed is very, very low. I wouldn't do my entire vehicle like this, but I think it's a good speed if you're just trying to get wax applied evenly throughout the entire paint surface. So now I'm going to go ahead and speed it up. And where this is a little over 3, which I'm assuming is 3,000 RPM. Feels pretty good. So now let me go ahead and move to the other part of the car. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the left side of the vehicle. Is I'm just going to go ahead and just dab a little more wax here. Now the wax that I'm using is a synthetic polymer. What I like about that is it's not going to require very much effort to be able to remove it. And it really does a nice job in providing a nice shine, but probably more importantly, providing protection against the elements. So now that it's been a few minutes, I'm going to go ahead and remove the wax here from the surface of the paint. Again, I'm going to use a nice clean microfiber towel. Now the polisher does include microfiber bonnets that you could also use. Because this is a liquid synthetic wax, it's not very difficult to remove. So I don't feel it's necessary for me currently to use the polishing bonnets. God, the paint feels absolutely great. Feels like glass. Nice and smooth, nice and shiny, and we're not even out in the sun yet. All right, so I know the paint wasn't bad when we started, but this is going to keep it looking great for years to come. So now let's go ahead and move on to the next panel. So let me just stop here for a second. I got to tell you, I absolutely love the fact that this is cordless. Now, I know that may not sound like a big deal, but I have polishers that probably cost 2 to 3 times more than this polisher. But I'm going to want to use this one first, always now, just because of the fact that it's battery powered. All right, so we're moving along here now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and finish up the rest of the car, and I'll go ahead and show you guys the final result. All right, guys, that's the final product. Right now, it's probably the first time today the sun's even come out. It's been raining all day, so it's nice that the sun is now out for me to be able to feature what the final product looks like. Now, some of you may be wondering, why do I have a front bra on my car? I do a lot of freeway driving, so because of that, this really just helps protect the paint. as I'm going down the freeway with all the bugs, with all the rocks, keeping the front bumper looking good. But it's also the perfect time to install it because of the fact that I just finished the wax. Now, as you guys can see here, I'll come around to the other side of the car. The polish and the reflection is absolutely awesome. You know, I know there's going to be different qualities of waxes that are out there on the market, but you need to have a good quality polisher, which the Smart Saker definitely does the job. All right, so just a couple things I just wanted to mention before I give you guys my final thoughts on the Smart Saker Cordless Polisher. The first thing is I did not purchase the Smart Saker Cordless Polisher for myself. One was actually sent to me to be able to sample here on Dwayne's World. Even with that being said, though, they did not advise me in any way on how to put this video together. So number two is, where do you pick it up if you do want to purchase one? I'm going to link in the description below the Smart Saker website. In addition, you can also find a Smart Saker Polisher on Amazon. At the time of this video, I believe the price point was between $110 and $120 depending on where you chose to purchase it. All right, so with those things being said, let me kind of talk to you guys now about my actual impressions of the Smart Saker Polisher. So one of the first things I want to mention may not sound like a big deal, but ultimately after using it, turned out to be a really big deal to me. It's probably been a couple years since I purchased any type of polisher that I've used on my vehicle, but they've always been corded. This is the first time I've ever used a polisher that was actually cordless. And it may not sound like a big deal because so many things now today are battery powered. It really made it that much more convenient when I was going around the vehicle and not having to worry about where my cord was. You know, in the past, I've always had to use extension cords, and especially if I want to do polishing outside, it was always difficult to get a cord sometimes where I needed it. You don't have to worry about that, being that the Smart Saker Cordless Polisher is cordless. All right, so the second thing I want to mention is, although I understand that in most cases the Smart Saker Polisher is probably going to be used by a DIYer, I like the fact that they included a variable speed like they do on a lot of high-end polishers. That makes it really easy for you to be able to choose the right RPM to match the type of application. Meaning in most compound polishing applications, you need to run a higher RPM. In the case of using a wax or really a final coat, the lower RPM definitely works out. So I really like the fact that it's variable. Even though this may not sound like a big deal, it tends to be more of a feature you find on high-end polishers. All right, so another thing that I really like about the Smart Saker Cordless Polisher is just how easy it is to use. You know, generally I don't like to use certain tools where it's really going to be a chore to get it out or get it set up. All right, so the last thing is, although I did not purchase the Smart Saker Cordless Polisher, I always think about it from the standpoint, would I want to give one of these as a gift? And I absolutely would want to give one of these as a gift just because of my experience here today on Dwayne's World. It is simple to use, it has a lot of high quality features, and the fact that it's cordless. If you are in the market for purchasing a polisher, whether it be for yourself or for a gift, I would highly consider you take a look at the Smart Saker website and ultimately decide whether or not you believe it's the right polisher for you. All right, so one of the last things I just want to mention is I want to thank the people over at Smart Saker for sending me out this sample for me to be able to feature here on Dwayne's World. And as always, be excellent and party on.